देखिए आप जो हैं आफ्ताब की जगह पर नहीं हैं आपके सरनेम की वजह से I have no qualms in saying that this is a book that celebrates the massive positive turnaround that the northeastern states have witnessed in the last 10 years.
One thing cannot be ignored, the havoc of Manipur.
Look East was their policy, Modi ji's was Act East.
It was Vajpayee ji who, as Prime Minister, included Sikkim among the northeastern states. The present government under Modi ji has changed the way we look at both our neighbours.
Do we need that capitalist thinking or capitalist mindset, provided which the central government is, pushing forward?
This India, this Bharat has no room for naysayers.
And moving towards a very controversial policy of BJP, the electoral bonds.
Donations come when you have a proven credibility.
Big businessman or, almost country's richest men are blamed by people that they are sort of giving the funding and all the stuff to BJP or the central government.
The very fact that they call him fascist and get away with it without any action that explains.
Hello guys and welcome back to AP Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for giving in so much of love and support to our podcast. It really means a lot to us. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. We upload every Saturday at sharp 7 p.m. And speaking about our today's guest are very distinguished authors and public figures of our country. Today we had the pleasure of hosting Aditya Pittie sir and Tuhin Sinha sir. Aditya sir is a businessman. He is an entrepreneur, angel investor and an author. And Tuhin Sinha sir is the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Together they had written this wonderful book called Modi's Northeast Story, where they had covered several topics via the means of various essays written by various people, both from politics in and out, and they had given their perspective that what was the scale of development that happened in the northeast zone of our country in last 10 years. But overall, this podcast consists of a lot of information. This podcast started out with obviously what the book has, what the contents of book are, but eventually we moved on towards various topics that were of contemporary relevance, from your electoral bonds to your capitalist nature to your democracy being in threat according to many people. So with that, AP Podcast rolling in 3, 2, 1. First of all, Aditya sir, Tuhin sir, thank you so much for being on AP Podcast. It's really a pleasure to host you.
Absolute pleasure. In fact, I just got to know that you are from Hindu College, my alma mater.
So,
it makes
is there
the
going to be a
podcast-
ragging session here as well?
I don't believe in ragging. But yes, that makes the podcast all the more special.
I hope so.
And we're discussing a book where one of the key chapters has also been written by a Hinduite, Pema Khanduji. So yes, I look forward to.
Definitely. So, starting the conversation with this thought only, when I personally saw this book for the very first time, with the picture of PM Modi and the title like Modi's Northeast Story, the book already is establishing an image that it represents a particular side, which could be of BJP, which could be of PM Modi. So my first question would be based on this only, that what is this book actually about? Is this book sort of just telling about the good works that's been done under the PM Modi's leadership, or it is there to give an unbiased perspective?
See, there is nothing called unbiased. We live in a very bipolar world. And being the national spokesperson of the party also, I have no qualms in saying that this is a book that celebrates the massive positive turnaround that the northeastern states have witnessed in the last 10 years. So there has been a total capital expenditure in excess of 4 lakh crores of rupees. And the effect of that is visible on the ground. From 8 airports, we have 17 airports today. There were 8 airports in 2014. We have 17 today. there is seamless road connectivity. So places in Arunachal Pradesh that would take you a good 24 to 36 hours to travel from Guwahati, that can be traveled within a few hours, either by taking a flight to one of the places in Arunachal Pradesh and subsequently traveling onwards by road, or otherwise. So I think all of these have also bridged the gap bridged the cultural gap which was artificially created by the previous governments. They used to call it the tyranny of distance. So I think we have bridged all of that. One of the chapters is written by Kiran Rijjuji, where he talks about the massive
Village program.
the vibrant village program. So you now imagine a village which is on the easternmost corner of India, maybe 500 kilometers further away from Itanagar, the capital of Arunachal. Imagine that village having the best 5G, the fastest 5G connectivity, the best implementation of the social welfare schemes, Nal Se Jal program, ensuring tap water connections, 24/7 electricity. So when those villages which were purposely kept abandoned by the previous governments, when they become the first centers of development, imagine the kind of sense of belongingness that develops in the people living over there. So that this has also reduced intrusions from the Chinese significantly, because of the 5G connectivity, they immediately inform the army and preemptive action is taken. So all of these have led to a massive change in people's perceptions and people's attitude. And I think the mainstreaming of the northeastern states in a true sense has happened in the last 10 years. The book celebrates that, essentially.
Okay. And do you have any thoughts to add on
So,
that, sir?
my perspective is, I'll take a little different perspective here. So, for me, it's a book that captures data. I'm a business person, I'm an industrialist, so I look at data. And this was also a way of documenting the transformation, celebrating it, as Tuhinji said, but as well as documenting with facts and data about what has actually taken place there in the Northeast in the last 10 years. So I think it's also a book for students of politics. It's a book about developmental politics. And I think it kind of gives an insight into the transformation strategy and development model of the Honorable Prime Minister. So, it's great to look at this. And why Northeast? Because it's one area that, as Tuhinji said, has been neglected for decades. So it's like, again, in a business terminology, it's a greenfield project. So it's like something literally being built from the ground up. So in that scenario, what has happened in 10 years serves, it's a clear example and serves as a model, and can also serve now as a template for development in other such regions, that are lacking behind. So that's what made this interesting for me.
Okay. And speaking about broadly Northeast only, I have read some of the essays that were present there, and obviously they were telling about the data and how the infrastructure have been built, starting from airport to building AIMS and all that stuff. But one thing cannot be ignored, the havoc of Manipur that happened. See, I'm not going to put this in perspective about ki Congress wale ye bol rahe hai or this opposition party is saying that, because I think it's politics and no one can be perfect here. So my question is from this standpoint, that how can someone have that courage to do something so disastrous, so absurd actually, in front of everyone in a democratic country, and provided the double engine government which PM Modi's government has been portraying, that double engine government should be there for better development. It was present there in Manipur. So your perspective?
Well, the violence which has taken place in Manipur is undoubtedly extremely unfortunate and shameful. But having said that, one of the chapters by Rami Desai covers the history of ethnic disputes in the Northeast. And one cannot look at the present without isolating the past completely. In fact, it's also a fact that the period between March 2017 and April 2023, the 6-year, 1-month phase, was probably the most peaceful and the most progressive stretch for the state. But then, there were ghosts from the past, or there were demons from the past, which eventually sprang up once again, and which kind of, the dark shadows caught up. I think the state government should have ideally been more vigilant. But then, having said that, I think the central government has been extremely committed towards resolution of age-old disputes. In fact, 90% of the disputes today stand settled, whether they are border disputes, whether it is insurgent groups giving up insurgency and joining the mainstream. Let me put it this way, that, while the opposition has a right to criticize us, and I don't think, this is something which we should play politics on, but, what you have witnessed, the violence that you have witnessed in Manipur, had there been a Congress government, unfortunately, the situation would have been as tough in a few of the other states. There has been a legacy of disputes in the past. I think, one needs time to heal. And despite our best efforts, somewhere, like I mentioned, the dark shadows from the past sprang up or caught up. In fact, the Manipur chapter in the book has been written by a very enterprising guy called Niranjan, where he talks about all the positive work that has happened in the last 6 years. And I can tell you, the violence that broke out last year is largely a thing of the past now. Things are pretty much settled and will only get better from here. But that chapter of Laranjam will give you a clarity on the intent, as you call it, of the
courage.
Double engine Sarkar. No, the commitment still remains the same. We are as committed to the development of Manipur as we are to the adjoining Arunachal Pradesh or Nagaland. Like I mentioned, it's just unfortunate that that some unsavory sediments of an age-old conflict sprang up once again and created a very unfavorable situation.
And would you also like to describe much about the Look East policy? Actually, the policy obviously was given by P.V. Narasimha Rao, but under PM Modi's leadership, how this policies has been constructed?
There is a difference. P.V. Narasimha Rao, when he spoke about Look East, unfortunately, while he, the focus was on developing a larger favorable equation with all the Southeast Asian countries, unfortunately, the same impetus of focus was not there on the development of our northeastern states. So that impetus first began during Vajpayeeji's era, where massive thrust was put on development of roads especially. And the same was taken to another level post 2014 onwards. So I think that is a difference. Like, with all due respect to Narasimha Rao ji, the Congress government speak a lot, but they don't deliver on the ground. We deliver on the ground. That's a big difference. So in fact, like since we are only the
Can I just step in there?
Please.
One thing I'll just add there. So kind of to build upon what Tuhinji said, the terminology itself shows you the difference. Look East was their policy. Modi ji's was Act East. So it's a huge difference. We don't call it Look East, it's Act East, what's happening now. And literally, they want to say now act first for Northeast. So there's action there. Modi ji has himself gone to the Northeast region 60 times. If you compare,
throughout this tenure.
Yeah, if you compare it with any other previous prime minister, it was literally from zero to nothing. Their visits to the Northeast, leadership shows the way. Just by going there, changes it. He's encouraging other union ministers, they must visit. So actually the policy in place today is Act East.
Act East. And you were adding something else also?
No. So, unlike Aditya ji, I have no attendant burdens to be politically diplomatic or to be diplomatic. So I would say it very openly that in the first few decades post-independence, which were very crucial for the country and for each of the regions, somewhere a dearth of understanding of the Northeast, especially of the tribes of the Northeast, by the central government of that era, particularly Nehru and then Indira Gandhi, actually aggravated many of the problems which should ideally have been resolved in those years. And obviously there are three known cases, if not more, in 1962, when one of the districts of the present day Arunachal. Then obviously Arunachal did not exist. It was a part of Assam. It was part of rather NEFA, which was a part of Northeast Frontier. It was a part of Assam. So when one of the districts was being taken over by the Chinese during the 1962 war, in a very abdicative mode, Nehru just came on television, on radio, and said, "My heart goes out to the people." And that abrupt statement gave a very wrong impression to the people of the Northeast. That was followed by the bombing of Mizoram. Mizoram again was a part of Assam in those days in 1965 by Indira Gandhi. Obviously, the aim was to hit out at one of the insurgent groups, MNF, Mizo National Front, in those days, but then eventually civilians died. And 1984, saw a very obnoxious episode in a village called Nellai in Assam, where 1,700 people were massacred. They were mainly believed to be refugees. So, all of these had led to a sense of distrust between the northeastern states and Delhi. And the distance, both emotional and infrastructural, was only growing rather than getting bridged. So I think that is where the first fresh change was visible in 1998 after Vajpayee became, in fact, it was Vajpayee who, as Prime Minister, included Sikkim among the northeastern states. So initially it was 7. Sikkim was included as one of the northeastern states and clubbed with all the activities and all the development programs. And obviously, Modi ji has taken it to another level with the infrastructural push.
And provided you have China as your neighbor, which is always there to trouble you, and you have your key assets,
that's a different story. In
countries.
fact, why only restricted to Northeast? The way we have stood up to China in every way, whether it is the PLI schemes, which is designed to hit out at China's prowess as a manufacturing hub. I think we have handled China very effectively on all fronts. In fact, Quad, one of the formations which India played a pivotal role in the formation of Quad, that again was aimed to curb China's expansionist tendency. So yes, I mean, the positive effect of it is seen in the northeastern states, because northeastern states had always bore the brunt of Chinese misadventure.
And with that only, do you feel at the time it has decreased a lot?
Absolutely. Unless you're going by Rahul Gandhi's juvenile comments, because, see, in Chinese tendencies may not stop, but then they have been given a bloody nose. In fact, forget going by what any political leader says. I think you should go by the statements of the army chief, or you should go by the official statements of the army. So whenever the Chinese have tried to indulge in a misadventure in the last few years in our northeastern states, they have been pushed back and they have been retaliated appropriately against.
Also, AFSPA was removed from almost 17 police stations, if I'm correct with the facts here.
Now it's a very small fraction of districts have AFSPA. It has been removed from most
Is that
of the
the
places.
correct choice that should be done, provided there are always heated clashes happening there in the northeast region?
No, in fact, clashes have come down significantly, barring Manipur and barring one or two episodes which took place in Nagaland in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't think there has been any significant, episode of violence. So, in fact, that explains our increasing confidence in removing AFSPA, because at the end of the day, local sentiments also need to be respected, which is what we're trying to do.
And I think geographically also this is a bit daunting for us, because let's say in northeast you have China, but when you come to Kashmir you have there Pakistan, and Pakistan and China obviously would want India to fall in the pit. So I think geographically also it's a bit daunting for us.
You can't choose your neighbors, that's for sure. And it's a fact that India has a massive 4,000 kilometer plus border with China. And while our focus pre-2014 would entirely be on Pakistan, because the previous government and especially the Gandhi family was somehow besotted with China. That explains the mysterious MOU which Congress Party signed with the Chinese Communist Party in 2018, the contents of which we don't know. That explains the Chinese donation to Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. So anyway, let's not get over there. But yes, I think the present government under Modi ji has changed the way we look at both our neighbors. So while we are all for friendly equations, I think there is a very important imperative for Pakistan to give up terrorism completely and for China to curb its expansionist mindset. So while we would want friendship with everybody, I think that friendship cannot be unconditional. That friendship cannot be at the cost of our sovereignty. I think this message has gone out. And this was a very important message which we don't understand why the previous Congress government had found it so difficult to give out.
And now moving towards Aditya sir, I have this one topic which is a bit controversial when it comes to BJP or the central government. It's about the capitalist nature of theirs. So I'm not saying this that the capitalist thing or the capitalist behavior should not be implemented or something like that. But the reason for asking this is that the way India is developing, the way India's future is projected, do we need that capitalist thinking or capitalist mindset provided which the central government is, pushing forward?
So again, there's no doubt I'm a business person, so that's how I think. But again, data shows that whether in India or in the developed countries, this is what it's showing, right? If there's job creation, wealth creation, value creation, that trickles down. But I don't think, you can look at the Modi government entirely just like a, capitalist model. I find that, he has encouraged development, I think, in all stratas of society. So, there have been great policies to encourage business, industry. It has also been very strategically focused through PLI schemes, even bridging the gaps that have existed in India in terms of our own, Atmanirbharta, industrial strength. If you see now, they're actively getting into semiconductor manufacturing. So strategic importance is being especially promoted along with the general promotion, impetus, and creating the kind of ecosystem to encourage all industry. But also, if you see, one of the biggest hallmarks and achievements of the Modi government has been the DBT, direct benefit transfer, and schemes. If you see all the schemes, they are purely aimed at the lower strata of society. Right from Har Ghar Jal to the Ujjwala program, the toilets, the homes that have been built for the poor, the Ayushman Bharat cards to give health security to people, the free vaccination, food to 80 crore poor people, which is still continuing. So I think it's been a kind of a development of India at numerous levels, and according to me, at all levels of the pyramid. Though in India, if you know now, we are no longer really a pyramid structure of society. It's turning more into a diamond. Because the poorer section, 25 crore people have been got out of poverty in India. So, the poorer are being pushed higher. It's becoming more inclusive and equitable development in India. So the middle income level or the middle section of society is expanding much more rapidly. So we are no longer really a pyramid. It starting to look more like a diamond. So this is really showing, the development that's being done, I think, at all levels. And now, they are pushing for 100% saturation of all the schemes. Modi ji talks about Antyodaya, which is really the development of the last person and 100% saturation of schemes. In fact, in a reference even to Northeast, the Har Ghar Jal, which is tapped water, which, maybe you and I living in the big cities don't realize the importance, but it's a game changer for what all it brings about. So Arunachal Pradesh achieved 100% Har Ghar Jal saturation just last month. So it was a monumental achievement.
And as a capitalist or a business individual, do you feel that in the last 10 years of PM Modi's leadership, you were having sort of a free hand, or there was not various restrictions that used to exist back then before the Modi era?
It's totally changed. This license Raj, inspectors, corruption, all that has gone because discretionary powers are not there.
And what sort of corruption happens when you're
so I'll just tell,
managing at that level?
There used to be all sorts of things we were dealing with: excise, sales tax. These things were quite tough because there were officers, ranges involved who could come, inspect you, pressurize you. All this stuff used to happen. It was rampant. Everyone knew it. It used to be treated as the cost of doing business. Today, all that is gone. With the GST regime, this is all online. Your returns are being tracked. Input, output, credits are being tallied with each other. There's probably a whole lot of AI there in the background. And you're no longer dealing with people. As soon as you're not dealing with people and there's no discretionary stuff happening, then automatically corruption and all that goes away. It's seamless. It's true ease of doing business. I don't think in some of my businesses we've met or even seen government officers for maybe 10 years. So it makes a huge difference. Even income tax, which we all pay. Now, earlier it was a range. You were connected to a city, a locality, you had to meet an officer. Now it's again faceless, nameless. You file a return which is all online and you don't know your case. If it's all okay, no red flags are raised. Now I have received a return, the return filed and a refund within a day. It's unheard of. People all report it happening within days and weeks max, no longer months. And today, even if there was an issue or certain thing that needs to be rechecked by the income tax department, it's faceless, nameless. So some officer in some remote corner of the country could possibly be seeing that file, and you'll have questions again raised through the portal and online. So he has no access to you. Legitimate questions may be raised by the department which you're answering, but there's no particular guy who's involved and who could have
the middleman is not there.
And that officer would not have a vested interest to come after you because he's sitting somewhere else. Really, I don't know him and he doesn't know me beyond just the file. So I think it's a big game changer in what's happening.
And moving towards a very controversial policy of BJP, the electoral bonds. I honestly have the exact number. I was checking the data yesterday. So there was this that Bharatiya Janata Party received nearly 90% of all corporate donations worth rupees 680.49 crores, and that was in the year of 2022 to 23. So when you are having policies, like electoral bonds where the donor is obviously anonymous, why situations like this or why things like this exist when these things can be public? Now, I'm not going to say that the other parties are not doing it. Obviously, there's Congress who is taking money from the same party where, or the same corporate where the BJP is getting funding from. But my question here is that if in a country like, let's say, US, the things can be public or the leaders themselves, advertise this, that they are getting funding from them. Why is that case not in India?
One of the reasons could be because, there are some very irresponsible politicians who vilify businessmen left, right and center. Hum do, hamare do, there used to be a politician who would constantly vilify the top two businessmen of the country, Ambani and Adani. Now that person has focused his attention on Adani. So one of the reasons is probably, that we still have irresponsible political parties which vilify or which demonize wealth creation. That is possibly one of the reasons. I don't think it will be fair for me to talk in detail because the matter is being, taken up in the Supreme Court, and I think SBI has to furnish a report by 5th of March, if I'm not mistaken. So I wouldn't like to go in detail, but I think, if you ask me why BJP gets maximum donation, it is because of the credibility. Two, we still, till about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, pre-demonetization, we had, a couple of regional parties which used to sell every ticket. Every candidate used to buy tickets from the chief of that party, and the amounts that they had to shell out was pretty well known. It has been covered by some hidden cameras, or some people have recorded the amounts which used to be demanded. So I think even with its limitations, I think the present system of electoral bonds is far better than the way unaccounted cash used to be splurged. We have seen that happening in Sefai Mahotsav by the Samajwadi Party. Crores of rupees were spent to get a couple of A-grade actresses and most of the B-grade, C-grade actresses who would dance, and Mulayam Singh Yadav and Akhilesh Yadav would enjoy for 3 days. So I think the present system is better than that. Yes, I mean, if there is a room for improvement, let the Supreme Court, lay out guidelines. And I think this is a government which takes the judiciary very seriously. So we would look for direction from the Supreme Court.
But the donors, you're saying, should always stay anonymous. They should
I'm
not
not
be
saying
public.
that. Like I said, the larger policy issue, since the matter is sub judice, since the Supreme Court is taking up the issue or has already made one ruling, I don't think it is fair for me to get into detail on these. But for those who habitually criticize us or make it seem that the BJP has been the only beneficiary of the present scheme, I think it's a lot about credibility. If the Congress had credibility, donations come when you have a proven credibility.
They are also getting, I guess. Not as much as big as BJP. Still,
So the amount you get, and that depends on the credibility that you enjoy, on your ability to deliver. In fact, just to take a detour from that, you just asked Aditya ji about capitalism. I think today the word capitalism and the word right wing, these are misnomers in the Indian context. Because essentially what this government has done is to try and provide an equal playing field for all. So today, through our digital public infrastructure, the DPI, and which is based on the impregnable JAM Trinity, the Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity, there is unprecedented and massive empowerment of the poorest of the poor. Capitalism is a misnomer because essentially capitalism is about creating opportunities for a few.
But it is also taking opportunities.
Sorry?
It is also taking opportunities at lower strata level.
No, it is actually empowering the lowest strata of people. It is actually providing a level playing field. So imagine when 18 crore people, 18 crore people get electricity, which they were previously deprived of 24/7. Imagine the kind of human capital that is building up for the future. All of these people would be better educated, they would be better prepared for. And today, with the kind of India has about 120 crore mobile handset, and 50% of them are internet enabled. So you can imagine that this empowerment is happening at the lowest level. In fact, today there are scores of villagers across the country who get weather updates before you or I would get, and accordingly they plan their agricultural produce. You must have heard of drone Didi, how customized fertilizers are being sent to the villagers, and all of these are happening through women in the village. So these are massive empowerment schemes. In fact, in one of the chapters, Ashish Chandorkar has spoken about how during the COVID pandemic, the government had gone out of its way to use drone technology to ensure that vaccines were provided to the most far-flung areas of Northeast, which would otherwise not have been covered, and ensure that 100% vaccination takes place. So I think we've created level playing field for all. I don't think capitalism and right wing are right words to in the present context.
You think it's being portrayed in a very negative tone nowadays?
No, I think there is. I think people tend to be a little casual in the usage of these two words.
And what do you mean by that? Casual, when you say casual?
Apart from it catering or subscribing to the majoritarian sentiment, it also by default implies a capitalist nature of the society, which we are not. A capitalist society or a capitalist regime will not go out of the way to pull 25 crore people out of poverty. In fact, if you look at the latest poverty data, I think it's at its lowest. Only 3% of the people are below the poverty line. So capitalist government would not go out of the way to ensure that poverty is removed or eradicated from the society. It would not go out of the way to ensure that 13 crore tap water connections are installed to ensure that infant mortality is at its lowest in the poorest, sections of society. So I think it's the best example of a truly inclusive government under Prime Minister Modi. And when I talk of inclusive, that is not just restricted to different stratas of society, that covers different regions of the country, which is where the Northeast story becomes so important.
Okay.
Just to add a bit, because when you also asked me, I tried to say that, development has happened at all levels. You cannot also vilify business and industry. There are direct and indirect benefits which are apparent, right? Now, just to add to that example, we've become from really nothing to the world's largest manufacturer and exporter of mobile phones. So now I'll just give it quickly that there's direct employment, when factories are made, all that, there's direct employment, that's direct benefits. They're also indirect, like he said, in villages, etc. We have now one of the largest number of of our population using mobile phones and using the internet, and we have the lowest internet costs in the world. So this also comes about, right? So I'm saying there's there's direct benefits of someone being employed, say, in that factory or in that business, but the indirect benefits are ones that scale keeps increasing. We have the lowest cost mobile handsets in India, globally, lowest internet cost by far in India. That allows all strata of society and everyone to use this and leverage the benefits that come out of it.
And as a capitalist, Aditya sir, do you think that you cannot be apolitical because you have to pick a side? Because sometimes in your decision making, or sometimes when you are at a national level or international level, you're recognized by everyone, and then you are sometimes forced also to take a side when it comes to political decisions.
Not at all. So again, I would never call myself a capitalist. I keep saying I'm a businessman and an industrialist. I really don't know what that term means, to be honest. It's an odd term which we can go in long-winded direction to explain, but somehow I would not accept that terminology. I'll say I'm a business guy. And it's, I think, in general, it's the other way around. Businessmen tend to be neutral in their political affiliations or overtly expressing anything. So it's usually the other way around. People tend to be very neutral.
In business, you're saying?
Businessmen tend to be neutral in their political stance. It's not their business, whatever they think privately and vote, etc., that's private. So businessmen by nature will not be overtly political or take an overt political stance.
And what you feel when these big businessmen or almost country's richest men are blamed by people that they are sort of giving the funding and all the stuff to BJP or the central government?
I think it's totally silly. Like Tuhin ji said, it's all silly stuff. It's politics. You're vilifying people who are wealth creators, taking India forward. Modi ji is talking about Viksit Bharat 2047. It's not only a certain class of people that will benefit, right? The most impressed I am recently of whatever is happening. We try to document 10 years of what happened in a specific region of India, which is Northeast. What I, as a business person, now am super excited and energized, and in fact I'm trying to do helping them with it also, is Modi ji is talking about this vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 is the time when we will become a developed nation. When per capita income will be high. So, this kind of, there'll be no poverty there. So it's a truly developed nation like the Western countries, like the US. And this is a people's movement. I think in two respects. Everyone needs to be involved in this vision. We all need to have that confidence, we can get there. And it's a collective movement to take us there. 10, 20, 100 or 1000 people won't take 1.4 billion people there. हमको सब चलना पड़ेगा. Secondly, once we reach there, it's not only again 100 people who have reached the finishing line. We will all have reached the finishing line, which benefits everyone. So there's a great vision for us, for our children, grandchildren. This is according to me, the real vision. Because I feel that the first 2 terms of the Modi government, they've set a very, very strong foundation for growth. The enabling ecosystem has been created, whether it's the digital public infrastructure, it is real infrastructure. You're seeing it. The pace of infrastructure creation is phenomenal. All the stuff that's happening, these are all foundational things. Now on this, our real Viksit Bharat will be built. And if you've seen, you're also in Delhi, a lot of construction happening. वो foundation से निकलने में time लगता है. Once the foundation is built, then the building comes up very fast. So according to me, that analogy will hold true for India. Now we're going to be leapfrogging. Very soon we'll be leapfrogging from the 5th largest economy to the 3rd largest. And then we are going to really go. There's now no holding us back.
Yeah. So just to add, the 8.4% GDP growth in the last quarter. Imagine the actual benefits or the actual, returns of the massive capex that we have put in the last few years, and of the impetus we have given to manufacturing hasn't even begun to fully or optimally show up. So imagine when that begins to show up in the next 2 to 3 years, a 10% or above GDP should become a norm. And imagine, just a couple of years back, there was this ex-RBI governor who was lecturing us that he'll be so happy if we manage to get 5% GDP. So I think, this India, this Bharat has no room for naysayers. It has no room for habitual pessimists. I think that explains the difference between Modi ji's government and the opposition.
Actually, I was about to come to this only. I have this very political sort of question here. There have been people out there who say this thing that PM Modi's biggest asset is his opposition. That is Mr. Rahul Gandhi. I don't want to sound too political here or too biased here, but my straight out question to you is about this only. What do you feel about this, the opposition thing in India?
The person you mentioned Rahul Gandhi does not deserve as much attention. So I think let me focus on the larger attitude of this opposition. The opposition somehow has a tendency of otherization.
Otherization or otherization.
So they have always otherized the minority community. They have always otherized, the Northeast. Now, let me say this emphatically, that Northeast has always had very intrinsic roots with India. So Rukmini, who was married to Bhagwan Krishna, was from Arunachal Pradesh. Chitrangada, the princess warrior, the warrior princess, was married to Arjun, was from Manipur. But somehow the opposition always had a tendency to look at the northeastern states as a state which deserved special treatment, which deserved to be looked at differently from the rest of Bharat. The same, since you are from Kashmir, the same happened in Kashmir. Kashmir has intrinsic age-old roots with Bharat. Adi Shankaracharya had travelled to Kashmir in the 8th century. I'm sure you've heard of King Lalitaditya, who around the same time in the 8th or 9th century had an empire which in those days would run from Kashmir to the present day Karnataka and to the in the east to Turkey. But somehow this tendency of looking at certain parts of the country as not intrinsically belonging to Bharat and therefore demanding special treatment for them was the reason why, a lot of problems not only emanated but also got aggravated over the years. I think this is where Modi ji is completely different. You must have heard of this Kashi Sangamam, a concept which he has propagated and championed in the last few years. So that celebrates the age-old civilizational links between Kashi and Tamil Nadu. And similarly between Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. Now you will be surprised to know that even today, around March or April, there is a festival where people from Arunachal travel as Bharatis to Gujarat. The people from the village of and from the clan of Rukmini.
This is a tradition there.
Yeah, it still carries to present day. But the tendency of the opposition to look at certain parts of our country as not intrinsically belonging to Bharat historically, I think that is what was the major cause of problems which emanated and got aggravated over the years. So I think let's focus on the attitudes and issues rather than on individuals, and I think that is where Modi ji is different from other politicians. That is where he has been the true unifier, the truest unifier after Sardar Patel.
And those people who call BJP or PM Modi fascist, what are your thoughts about that?
I think the very fact that they call him fascist and get away with it without any action, that explains, that there is no truth in it. Those are people, by the way, who are also still besotted with Pakistan. So yesterday, the same guy, Rahul Gandhi, as much as I don't want to name him, fact is that since he belongs to the principal opposition party of the country, and since he, without being the official head, seems to be in the thick of things, one has to name him. Yesterday, he made a comment that India's unemployment rate is double that of Pakistan. Would anybody in his right senses, even agree or accept such nonsense that comes from him day in and day out? And what is this obsession? What is this infatuation of the Congress leaders with Pakistan? In 2015, Mani Shankar Iyer went to Pakistan and in fact pleaded with some people that, you have to help us remove Modi ji. After the abrogation of Article 370 in 2019, Digvijay Singh was on a clubhouse chat with some Pakistani journalists and he promised them that let Congress come to power, we'll get back Article 370. So I think the opposition has a lot to introspect, and there are reasons why they have been reduced to a fringe today. A fringe. The opposition today is a fringe.
And why is so much of hate for Rahul Gandhi? I know you don't want to name it.
It's not hate. It's just that, we don't... India today is more unified than ever before. India is taking giant strides towards becoming the number 3 economy in the next 2 to 3 years. And, towards chasing her Viksit Bharat goals. We don't want somebody who divides, who wants to divide people at every beck and call. So imagine, him calling out people. Would I call your, friend by his name and said, "Aapka naam kya hai? Kya hai aapka naam? Bataiye." Pura naam. Pura naam. So this is how he behaves, and this is how he tells people, देखिए आप जो हैं आफ्ताब की जगह पर नहीं है आपके सरनेम की वजह से. Would you accept that in a progressive country? Would he do that to another community? Why does he take the Hindu community for granted? Why does he think that he can do anything to malign the Hindu community, to divide it? So I think there are larger issues. We don't have anything personal against him.
Maybe because of the communist, I am sounding too political here, but maybe because of the communist alliance they are having at the
Even
moment.
the communists don't have any alliance with him. They in fact want his seat in Wayanad. They're not letting him fight from the Wayanad constituency.
But the India alliance, right?
See, I have grown up in a place called Jamshedpur.
Yeah.
So I have seen how wealth creators can do a world of good to the country. Jamshedji Nusarwanji Tata was a classic example. Yesterday, in fact, was his birthday. Now, who encouraged these industrialists? At some point of time, to be fair to Nehru, who was Rahul Gandhi's grandfather, Nehru was pro-industrialist. So imagine this guy going against the grain of his own family. Imagine this guy going against the ideology of his own. I think, there are larger issues. This country, doesn't want to look back. This country doesn't want to be divided on caste lines. We don't want a society where our kids between themselves talk about aapka surname kya hai, uska surname kya hai. I think these are larger issues where I think, the opposition today has been completely relegated to the position of a fringe.
BJP is also blamed sometimes for religion-based politics, provided, sometimes they are shown as carrying the beacon of one
religion. A very
religion.
simple answer is that you look at the data. I think data should speak louder than words. So look at all the central government schemes, and since you believe in a lot of research, in almost, whether it is tap water connection, whether it is Jan Dhan Yojana, which is opening of bank accounts, the percentage of minorities, Muslims who have benefited, is far in excess of their actual population. What is the population of Muslims in the country?
But again, that's the thing. Why are we bringing Muslim? I didn't even ask the question about Muslims.
Because at the end of the day, they are the second highest, the number.
Minority-wise, you're saying?
We cannot, but then, that would not be beating around the bush if officially, in terms of numbers, they are, in terms of percentage, the second highest, insofar as the community is concerned. So if some people who are blaming us for being anti-minorities, obviously would by implication mean that we are anti-Muslims, which we are not. The data proves itself.
And the whole debate of Hindu nationalist country.
We are that. Honestly, Hinduism is a way of life.
Sanatan Dharma actually.
When we talk about Advani ji has been extremely unequivocal, extremely unapologetic, and you should read his articulation. For us, Hinduism is a cultural identity. And why should it not be? Why should you confine your history to the last 700 years? Our history goes back 5,000 years to 8,000 years. And if we are rooted in Sanatan Dharma, if our culture is rooted in Sanatan Dharma, we should be able to celebrate it. If today Thailand and Indonesia can celebrate Ramayana and Ram at on such a large scale, why should we be so apologetic about it? And I think we have shed that apologetic nature of ours in the last few years. 10 years ago, nobody would have imagined the kind of celebrations that Ram Mandir, the Pran Pratishtha generated. And I think we need to be unapologetic about that, because India is secular because of the Hindu majority.
Hindu majority. Okay, then with that, moving towards the end of this conversation, I have one last thing for you, for both of you actually. When we hear the word Bharat or Viksit Bharat, as people keep saying, what are we actually saying here? As in, the facts are there, the improvement through infrastructure or economy or anything that's happening there that exists. But when we say Bharat, or when you say the word India with conviction, with patriotism, what are you actually dreaming for?
Viksit Bharat?
No, Bharat as a whole. What's the dream when you say Bharat with conviction?
For me, honestly, I just love that term. It is Viksit Bharat. So developed India, where, the per capita income is in excess of $10,000, allowing everyone to enjoy, a good quality of life, have dignity of living. That is really Viksit Bharat, when everyone rises up together. It's part of our culture, tradition, dharma. Just some people can't be super rich and still some in poverty. So for me, a vision where we actually go to that, where, everyone is at a certain level of living, enjoying a good quality of life. And really, earlier India was called Sone Ki Chidiya. We need to really come back to that.
That stage.
So for me, kind of it's that. And to, quote our Honorable Prime Minister, yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai, Bharat ka anmol samay hai. I honestly believe that, I have also, I'm a business person. I have lots of things that I'm involved with. My idea to, come into all of this, join the BJP, etc., was to come and make an impact. I don't want to be a fence sitter. It's part of my Sabka Prayas, what Modi ji says. And really, I'm out there and I'm trying to do whatever I can for nation building. And I think this is a good platform to do it. I encourage most of my friends and other colleagues as well that one must all step forward and contribute however you can, which is Sabka Prayas, to nation building. I'll just give a short example if we have 2 minutes. I tell people, I'll even tell my driver, the person who drives my car. So he keeps telling, मैं गरीब आदमी हूँ, what can I do? So I say, Modi ji's vision and at least my articulation or understanding is different. So if you have a certain task, you follow the traffic rules meticulously. Even if there's no policeman, don't ever cross a red light. Even in the middle of the night, no one's there, don't cross a red light, don't jump a red light. That is all nation building. Imagine if we all did that. I come to Delhi, I get horrified with the traffic here. But if we all followed this kind of discipline in our own lives, whether it's maintaining cleanliness, swachhata, this all stuff, according to me, each one doing as per his own capability, doing something for nation building is what this dream is all about. And I think this sort of a vision, this sort of a kind of sabka prayas, along with the confidence, you must have a confidence. 10 years before Modi ji came, etc., there was despondency. As an economy, we had become fragile 5, all of that. There's a sense of despondency. Kuch nahi hoga, aise hi chalega. You must be having friends or relatives coming from US or UK and telling you how great things were there. तो we say हमारा ऐसे ही है, कुछ नहीं होने वाला. I think that has changed totally. The confidence that is there in the nation is something else. When we go abroad, my head is held high, my chest is broad. I'm so proud of the country. In the US, in fact, I find many things very backward in terms of digital payments, etc. So, I think Sabka Prayas, along with a confidence that we are going to get there, is what is going to get us there.
Yeah.
Since the book was a starting point, let me get back to the book. If I may hold it, and I think, or if you could hold it, let everybody take a look, because this is what was a starting point, and let me end it with this. So when I talk of Viksit Bharat, one of the core ideas which Prime Minister Modi has worked on and which we should all emphasize upon is to eliminate regional imbalances. And I think, the book is important also because the same model of development can be applied not only to any other part of the country, but to any other part of the world also. I think regional, when you remove or when you eliminate regional imbalances, it is bound to lead to an increase in GDP numbers. And in fact, as we get set to chase our bigger Viksit Bharat goals, which is potentially $40 trillion economy in the next 20 years, the core impetus has to come from newer places, newer cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities, newer regions. And that is where, places like Guwahati, Itanagar, Kohima, all of them become very important. So I think going ahead, Viksit Bharat would ensure that all of those regions which have somehow remained underdeveloped in the country get an equal share of development and get to play an important and very crucial part in our larger Millennium Goals.
I hope so people get this message, and thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks, it was lovely chatting with you.
I had a great time. I hope so I was able to do justice to this conversation, provided you two are some really prolific people of our country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.